Hi, I'm Bob Gallagher, President of Sun Design Remodeling. Thank you for coming to our virtual seminar today. We appreciate you guys making the time. Sun Design is an architectural design build remodeling firm. Really what that means is that we have architects, regular interior designers, kitchen and bath designers, and construction folk all under one roof. Sun Design has been around for pretty good long time. This is our 33rd year. Obviously, times are changing, and we're all being affected one way or another. One of the interesting things about all of this is that we're all spending a lot of time at home, and we're probably going to determine how we can use our space better, differently. Home gyms, home offices, workspaces at home, kids at home, going to school online. There's just a whole lot of things that are going to be impacting our lives. So we want to be able to bring you seminars like this so that you can view them from your home, and you can start to think about how you might want in the future your homes to be done differently. At the end of all of this, we want to make sure that we're able to assist in bringing our clients, families together more than they might have been previous. Often when we have seminars, they're in person and they're in our office. And we also really like to be able to get to know people and develop relationships. So we have food in, and we all hang out and sit around and eat and chit chat about projects and whatever. And Mighty Meals will provide our current clients a 25% discount. So if they don't have a kitchen that's working or something like that, then we can deliver those meals so they don't have to worry about cooking them. They only have to worry about heating them up. So today, we thought it would be nice for all of the people that signed up and who are here on our virtual seminar to have the opportunity to get a taste of the Mighty Meals. So we're providing those for you, and we hope you enjoy them. If you would like to schedule an appointment either now or during the webinar, you can do a couple of things. One, you can actually just call into the office, and there will be somebody there who's available to schedule an appointment with you. You can also send in an email, and we'll be able to get back to you. If you would like someone to get back to you on the following day, you can also fill in the contacts form on the links section. Appointments can be either in person or they can be virtual, at least for the first appointment. We will be facilitating questions and answers, so feel free to put your questions into the Q&A section as we go. So today's presenter is Craig Durasco. Craig is the founder and chairman of Sun Design. Craig is also my business partner, and you guys are going to love him.
So today's thriving in place. A lot of people call it universal design, aging in place. By definition, universal design is the design and composition of a living environment so that it can be accessed, understood, and used to the greatest extent possible by all people, regardless of their age, size, ability, and disability. So when you're looking at a remodel, the first thing is we really want to understand why you're doing it. And every client we work with has a different why. You know, it could be that your kids are going to leave and they're going to college, and it's just going to be the empty nesters, and you're going to be, there, and it's just the two of you in this big house. But what happens at the holidays or during the summer, the kids come home, and eventually they might, get married, or they might have kids. Then all at once, your family room and kitchen just become too small. But yet when they're gone, you want a really nice, quaint little space you can hang out and feels like home and not really big. It could be that you have a new child on the way. We have people that have 2 kids and they have a third on the way, and they're trying to figure out how to expand their space. Or they might want separate spaces where they want to be able to have the kids have their space and adults have their space as they entertain. What would you like to really fix? It could be that peninsula that everyone bottlenecks around. It could be the flow, like, it could come right off the garage and everyone just drops their stuff in the kitchen. And then also it could be inspirations where, whether it's Pinterest or Houzz, or you're out looking at these $30,000 of professionally pictured kitchens, and you get excited and you're like, I really like all these ideas, but I don't know how to make this a reality in my home. So when universal design is done well, it really is invisible. There's really 4 different concepts in universal design. One is future planning. That's like, we're perfectly healthy, we're young, but we want to basically have the house adapt to us over the years. And so we want to basically have a big shower that we can adapt over the years, or we want a bedroom on the main level, or we want access. It could be just the flow of the island. It could be a sunken living room that you bring up all one level. It could be when you redo the deck or porch on the back, don't do a step down, do it flush. Maybe even with a flush sill, so everything's on one level. It could be if you're creating remodeling the first floor to have all one level living, make sure you bring the washer and dryer up, or things that you want to use there. And that's kind of looking at the future planning. And the second one is really around the ADA, or more accessible design, and that is really a strict regulated wheelchair access to all areas. And a lot of times you can adapt that by the book, or you can adapt residentially. We can adapt portions of it for what's important and really make it specific for your needs. And then you have your visitable areas. Maybe one of your parents are at a retirement facility and you want them to come and spend Thanksgiving dinner with you, but your kitchen's on the second story of the house and you can't get them there. And so trying to figure out how someone can come visit you and spend time with you, whether it's like maybe it's sitting by the pool with you or around the kitchen table, and interacting with grandkids, but then being able to go home and sleep in their own home, but it's really just a visit during the day. And finally, you have the livable access, and that's where someone would basically move in for whether it's short or extended periods of time. I'm working with a lot of clients where they say that their parents might come for a week, it might be a month, or it might be 3 months. And they want to be able to create a space that's somewhat private to them. They want to be able to spend time with the grandkids with them and have a good time, but also where they can retreat back and have some private time and private space. Also accessible. So whether it's a restroom, so a lot of our split level homes in this area don't have bathrooms on the main level, so they're constantly going up and down stairs, so trying to get access all in one level. So as we look at kitchens, there's a lot of different ways we could look at incorporating accessible design in kitchens. But just to give you a little flavor, and a couple of things that we look at is, one is range versus cooktop. So when you think about your cooking appliance you have now, the range is where you have the burners on top and the oven underneath that. Pretty standard in most homes in this area. What I'm finding is that some people don't like the idea that they have to pull a heavy turkey out of the lower rack of the oven. And so it's easier on a wall oven where basically they're pulling out at waist height. Some people like that it's all compact and put together. So there's not a right or wrong here. It's just understanding the benefits of each, because obviously the range is more compact where the double oven is separate than the cooktop. And so allowing that space. Another issue is that some people are worried about the wall oven, that the wall oven, the door used to come down all the time and burning the back of their arms. Some of the wall ovens now offer hinged doors where you can open to the side. Another thing is a slide-in range. What's nice about that is the old ranges often had the range knobs at the back. And so obviously if you had something boiling, you're reaching over, it's harder to access, it's farther of a reach, where a lot of the slide-in ranges now have the knobs in the front, and some people worried about safety. Almost all of those have lockouts that you can hold a button for like 3 seconds and locks out all the controls, so you can't turn on that gas if you're worried about a toddler or safety running around. Another thing we look at is if you have it's called an OTR, or over-the-range microwave. It was very common in the 80s to put the microwave over the range, very convenient, had the blower in the bottom. But what we're finding over time is whether it's a little one pulling boiling items out over their head out of the microwave, or some of them maybe had arthritis and you're lifting things up over your head to put them into the microwave. Not always the best from an access standpoint. So we try to look at different options, whether the microwave goes above the wall oven in a separate unit, or we're seeing a lot of microwave drawers that are actually in the island where you have a push button, the drawer comes out. And some people, the first versions of those would just stick a standard microwave and you'd kind of arch and creak your back trying to get there. Now the newer ones mainly all come out as a drawer and you put your food in from the top, so it's much easier to access, and all the controls are on the top of that too. And other things we're seeing too, drawers are becoming really popular in kitchens because of the access. They have glides that are allowing them to put a lot more weight in them, and people are actually putting a lot of plates in there. And with the soft close, you're able to shut them. It doesn't make the dishes fall all over the place, but very accessible. So if you're unloading a dishwasher, say, and you have all your dishes and cups and everything right there in a drawer. It's very easy to organize. And the other benefit of that is if we're in a home and we're trying to open the outdoors and bring more of the outdoors in, we're putting much larger windows so you see better views of the outside. We need less wall cabinets for that too, which is kind of nice. And finally, and I touched on it in the beginning, but waist height appliances. And so just if you think about it, from your cooktop to your oven and microwave, all right around that 36-inch countertop height, leaves you a lot of access and less bending. So a few more things in kitchen design also to think about is really the work surfaces and also flow. It was very common to have a peninsula where you basically might have a bottleneck at the corner, and if you were entertaining or had all your family there, it was very hard to get around. One of, I think, the benefits of the island, there's a couple of them, is that it allows more access. Whether you had walk-arounds of there, it also allows your friends or guests to hang out around the island and not in your work triangle where you have your work area going on. And so thinking about really those work triangles are going to be good, but also like where your guests want to be so you can be with your family, with your guests, but it still has your clear working area too. The other thing around that is heights of islands and countertops. So your standard kitchen, countertops are typically 36 inches or thereabouts. Your eating area, your table heights are around 30 inches, and then your bar heights at 42. If we are looking at universal design, for instance, like you might have someone that's either in a walker or a wheelchair in the house with you all, the bar height of 42 inch is a little bit discouraged. I know for a while there was that 2-height island that was very popular. We're still seeing a fair amount of it, but from universal design, just having everything at that 36 inch, I've even seen some islands where they're dropping the bar height down to 30, which is a table height, so it's very easy to access from all your 18-inch stools. So then just thinking about the stools that work with each of those. But I think that's as we look at it, and then as you add into that, the counter heights, also floor heights. We kind of look around, and some of the things you really want to think about are any kind of steps or thresholds. So it was very common where you had 2 different wood floors put in different times. You'd have like a raised threshold, kind of a trip hazard. We like to cut those down if we can recess them in, whether it's carpet or tile transitions. As we're opening up some of our kitchen designs, and having that flow through floor, we're eliminating all the different floor textures or surfaces. So it was very common. I remember I grew up in a house that was built in the 60s, and it had like slate in the foyer and linoleum in the kitchen and carpet in the living room and hardwood here, and there was a lot of thresholds, a lot of different colors. What we're seeing now is just, whether it's hardwood floor or whatever it is, running consistently through the space. It's really nice not having those transitions or any kind of trip hazards. I mentioned earlier doorknobs are the easiest example because I think we all were used to the round doorknob. And if anyone's had like wet hands and kind of a tight door, kind of hard to open, and you can only imagine that gets worse with arthritis or like a toddler. And so levers have become really popular because I can have my hands full of stuff and use my elbow to open it. And I think we're seeing that's a little, little kids are easier to open, and if we had arthritis and likewise. So levers are kind of taken over. If you kind of think about that throughout the house, that applies to all your kitchen cabinetry and everything. Like, how do I want to open these cabinets up? I'm going to transition into bathroom design now. And so as you think about looking at remodeling your bathroom, what are some things you'd like to incorporate or things to think about as you future plan your bathroom? One of the biggest things we're seeing, I think, overall is that there was a period of time where the big jacuzzi tub, the 2-person jacuzzi tub, was very popular. And then you had this tiny little shower next to it, like 30 by 30, your elbows might hit, and it might even be dark. And people were realizing, that maybe I'm not using that tub that much, and my shower I use every day and it's too small. So a larger shower, but it also allows more functionality. So over the years, whether it's like, hey, you break your ankle for 3 months, you need to be sitting, it allows you to put a chair in there. It could be short term. It could also be, I'm going to put a teak bench in my shower to shave my legs, or something like that, where you want functionality of that, and you just throw it away when you don't want it. And then there's also the built-ins where you can actually build in the shower benches and things like that. But the larger the shower offers a lot of features and functions over the time. Things to think about with that larger shower though is maybe a handheld. Very common. The fixed head on the wall was very common. But now as the showers get bigger, they're harder to clean. It also allows a couple of different things. Just say someone needed to sit down in the shower, whether it was an injury or something. The handheld makes it very easy to bathe and things like that. without having that fixed head. It also, with the cord, you can rinse out the shower much easier. We're also seeing a lot of people where they adapt it where the grab bar might also be the place where they tie off their dog and wash their dog in there with the handheld. So this is really where we're seeing someone using the same space for many different uses and the abilities and access over time. Again, I touched on it like levers rather than knobs in the bathroom, same as the kitchen, and then getting into temperature controls. So if you think about where a typical bathroom, so if you go into a hall bathroom, it's very typical you'd have your sink, your toilet, and your tub lined up, and the shower head was right over, the valve, and it was around the toilet. So as you're young, not a big deal, but you realize that it becomes more of a safety issue as you're leaning around over the toilet to turn on the shower, that the cold water sprays out over you to jump back to get that temperature right. There's no reason that valve just can't be on the other wall where you basically turn on the valve and get the temperature, exactly the temperature you want before you step in. It takes like 5 feet of copper or whatever the plumbing pipe is. It's just back in the day when things were all copper and cast iron, it was always easier to have what they'd call a wet wall and all the plumbing fixtures on one wall. But today that really doesn't save a lot of money, and it is much riskier as far as the safety. And so it is still very common and very typical to plumb it that way. But if we have an accessible design, we are looking at moving those valves around. The other thing you can also introduce is a thermostatic valve. And a thermostatic valve is something you can have the temperature set, and then you're turning on the shower heads just on and off. So the temperature is always set. You really never touch the temperature control, and which is just one more nice feature you don't have to worry about. If just say you had a loved one, you're worried about them getting too hot, too cold. And it's just easier access, and so you can have the handheld on one and a rain head on another. Things we're seeing in the bathroom also are that people are becoming more casual in the bathrooms too. They're not so worried about the perfectly folded towels on the side. And honestly, I've had a couple people where whether it's a stroke or they don't have full use of both hands, it's very awkward to fold a towel and then put it up over a towel bar. And so we're seeing robe hooks being very easy, where we might put a couple robe hooks in the shower. And it's very easy to throw a towel up with one hand, get in, shower, dry off, and put it up. I know there's, and then we can also do a towel bar somewhere else, but robe hooks are becoming introduced into the bathroom design more and more just for easy access. A couple other things, there's going to be the comfort height toilets are very popular these days. The standard toilet is around the 14 inches, a little bit lower, a little hard as some of our clients might have bad knees, where the comfort height toilets are a little bit higher, a little easier to get up and off, and they're coming in around 17 inches. But that's something the designer can work with you as far as some people like the lower toilet still, but that's still, again, personal preference you can work through. And a little detail, you can always put an outlet, GFI outlet behind the toilet if you ever want to introduce a bidet seat down the road. Depending on if you have enough space, we're finding that a lot of people, if they don't have enough space really for the larger shower, they're okay with losing the tub, and maybe they keep the tub in the hall bath. So things to think about, like I had a client where he's like, for 22 years I showered in this, I stepped over this tub and he fell out because his foot got stuck on the tub, and he's like, I don't want a tub, so I think people are much more open about ripping out tubs, opening up big showers, and if they wanted a tub they would have the hall bathroom or something like that, another bathroom in the house. Now we do have a lot of clients that like to soak, but maybe they don't need the big 2-person jacuzzi tub and it's a single person. And the biggest difference about a soaking tub and like a combo tub is they're typically deeper. The biggest complaint on a standard like cast iron or a steel tub that you might see in a newer home, it might only be about 14 inches deep, so half your body's out of it, you're cold. So they want to go to a deeper 17-inch tub or so. The problem with that is if it's a combo tub, you have to be aware that you're stepping over that sill. So now you're raising maybe that step about 3 inches. So depending on who's using that bathroom, whether it's little kids or older people, you have to really think about access and accessibility getting over that. So some people are limiting the tub altogether. Some people are keeping a combination tub. Some people are doing separate soaking tub and a larger shower. So again, it's all tailored to basically what's important for you and what you like. So another thing you might be thinking about is if we wanted to put like a full bath on the main level. And so we're seeing some people where they might take an office that could be converted to a bedroom down the road on the main level and taking the half bath and make a full bath. Things to consider with that is that is also your guest bathroom. And so some people are realizing, okay, if I have someone living in this bedroom full time, It might be personal belongings. It could be medicines or makeup all over the place. And basically you have, this is what your guests are. And so what we're trying to do is create a half bath. So it's your guest bathroom and then either a split shower area where it's more private, or a combination, where you have the full bath also. So it's a bath and a half on the main level. So you're focused on entertaining and also the privacy of the guest who's staying on that level, and it could be you. When it comes to safety, I think trying to have a texture on the tile, you really want to stay away from very high gloss tile. And so if it's wet, especially in the bathrooms or a foyer where someone could be coming in with wet feet, and into the bathrooms, we also look at grab bars at the transition areas. So if you're stepping from the bathroom floor into the shower, from the shower out, it's very common to have a transition grab bar right there. And then when you're in the shower, you might have a horizontal bar or something to grab onto. Some people don't want to add those grab bars at this time, and they might just have us block for those grab bars that they could add later, but the blocking would be there. And there's also a lot of designs nowadays where they're not as commercial looking, and they're tailored to the finishes and the style of the plumbing fixtures, and so you can go ahead and install them now. Again, it's all up to your preference there. And some other things we hear a lot about is, do I need a curb or no curb or low curb into the shower? There's no right answer. There's a lot of different versions of that. Most people don't roll their wheelchair into the shower. It's more or less they would transition, so often a low curb is fine. Some people do like the idea of like a slot drain, and they're doing a full large format tile sloping down. A lot of different options there, and depending on if it's new construction in that area or if it's a remodel, how old the house is, what kind of structure it would take, whether you want a tile floor or like an acrylic pan, those are all factors in cost and feasibility of doing that pan. So now let's start looking at the comfort of your space. And so that involves the heating and air conditioning, or what we call the HVAC. The older homes, you'd have one unit, often, in the basement, it would heat and cool all 3 floors. And it was very common, there was a big temperature difference between the 3 floors. It's very standard today anymore. But as we start blending 2 families into a home, or as we age, we become less tolerant of the heating or sleeping cycles, and so we want to make sure we're comfortable as possible. So there's a couple different ways we can approach that. If it's a single space, like an in-law suite on the main level, often we'll approach it where it's a mini split, and that space will have its own unit just to heat and cool that space. So that temperature control is separate from the main house, and so you can keep those at very different temperatures to sleep and also during the days. And so thinking about that and where those thermostats are, and basically the different temperatures of the different zones. Other things to think about in air quality is that there's an air return, and that's basically the big register on the wall. So you've got all your supplies on the outside, usually you got your air return on the inside wall. That's bringing all that air back into the unit to be conditioned. We're seeing some of the basements that have been remodeled over the years haven't put those air returns in. And so someone might say, hey, my basement, it's musty or it's not fresh air. Often we'll look downstairs and make sure that air return is installed. If not, we'll add it to the existing furnace when we remodel the space to make sure you're getting that transition of air. And the final note on that is thinking about the HVAC filters you have to change. So it's very common that it might be in the furnace, but if the furnace is in your attic, it's very hard to get to, or even on the lower levels sometimes. So they can put basically return grills in that have the filter in the return grill. So you just simply pull the grill off the wall with these 2 little pins, replace the filter right there, and it makes it a lot easier to access the unit. Okay, let's get into the lighting. And so that's something we look at in a lot of different layers. So obviously the first thing is always natural light. Natural light is always the most preferred. And thinking about where that morning sun is or the evening sun is, and there are certain areas of the room, like whether it's a home office and you've got computer screens, you don't want natural light as much. So thinking about the orientation, but often we're bringing more windows and more light into the space. Other things, as you open up a floor plan, just say maybe you had several rooms cordoned off that were opening up. What's really a nice benefit is you might never have seen the morning sun come through the family room, but as you open up the wall, you now get the morning in the afternoon sun. So that's a nice benefit in thinking about all the natural windows. Then we get into general lighting, and that's where you typically see general recessed lighting, generally lighting the area, and often people like dimmers on there so you can dim it at night. There's also some neat things we'll talk about a little bit later on technology where you're able to dim it from your cell phone if you use the Wi-Fi dimmers and things like that we'll look at. And then there's the task lighting. And I think this was very common if you've been into a home that was built in the 70s, maybe the 80s, you would have the fluorescent light in the middle of the kitchen, which is actually behind you at the kitchen counter. And so the light source was behind you as you're working in front of you. Really hard as we age and our vision isn't as good to get really good lighting. So that's where basically the more directional or recessed lights came in, where they can be placed along the edge of the countertop or in the general vicinity to light those areas. But then you also have other task lighting where basically the under cabinet lighting. So you'd have the strip LED. It used to be fluorescence, then they went to halogen, and now we're seeing a lot of the LED strip lights underneath the cabinets, and they're actually lighting the workspace you're working on. It's nice too because you can use those as more just accent lighting or night lighting if you wanted to turn all the overhead or harsh lighting off, and so that's kind of functional and nicely done there. And then you get into more reading and more specific. So if you're in the family room or home office, you want really good lighting. A lot of times that can be accomplished with lamps. So obviously making sure that the outlets are where you need them to are important there. And finally, from a safety standpoint, making sure your stairways are illuminated. By code, you need to switch to the top and bottom of all the stairs. And as you go to the outside on decks too, you have to make sure those the deck stairs are illuminated too for safety. Think about lighting in the bathroom. So there's some really neat inspirational lighting if you look on Pinterest or Houzz, and especially in powder rooms, things where you just have like maybe some pennants, some fun lights. But when you get into the bathrooms where you might be shaving or putting makeup on, it's really important to think about also functional lighting. So if you've ever been in a bathroom with recessed lighting, it's not ideal for either of those because basically the lighting is coming from above and it's shadowing everything. And so you really want to make sure you do have sconces or something on the wall providing good functional lighting. But then also it's not a bad idea to have recess and maybe even on a dimmer, because when you're not shaving or putting makeup on, you don't need that harsh light. But making sure that you do have that light in the source where you want it. I want to touch a little bit on technology in remodeling and looking at accessibility. Just a simple one you probably have seen a lot is like the Ring doorbell, which is really nice because it has a camera on it, and it also can send you a notification if someone's there or rings the doorbell. What's nice is that if it's a loved one and maybe they're living alone and they're older and you want to just keep an eye on them, there's different ways you can use that Wi-Fi enabled camera to keep an eye on who's coming to the door from a safety perspective. There's also things like smoke detectors that are interconnected and can send you a text when the smoke detector goes off. So if you want to just check on a loved one and make sure they're okay. And it is also in our own home, as far as these smart locks are great. A lot of them are Wi-Fi enabled where you can actually unlock or lock the door remotely, or the garage door. So just say you go to work and you left the garage door open, you can be able to shut it from a remote area, or if you have a service person coming over, you can actually unlock the door, open the door for them. And one final note on lighting and technology is the use of Bluetooth enabled dimmers. And there's some really great apps. I know most Apple phones have the Home app where you can connect basically the thermostat, outdoor lighting, the Ring doorbell, you're setting the temperature, all kinds of things and getting notifications. But one nice feature is being able to dim different lighting around the house or turn it on. And so what's nice is if all the lighting is standard and you're just replacing the dimmer, it's much more affordable. They do offer options where they have the smart bulbs where you have to replace all the bulbs to get that connectivity, but you also can use standard bulbs and just replace the dimmer as long as they have the connectivity. And a couple final notes on accessibility, thinking about coming into the house or leaving the house and just how easy is it for people to visit or for you to come in and out. And so we look at everything from from that kitchen floor plane out, and so whether the floors dip down or the thresholds, but also coming up to the house, how many steps to the front door. And some people don't want to change the front, street appeal. And so there's a couple different things. If you have a garage, sometimes we look at, can we make a more approachable access from inside the garage? Or it's possibly right around the outside of the garage or to the back door. I've seen everything where you go through the garage and then a ramp up to the back door. So it's very accessible, even from a wheelchair, but the front of the house and everything feels exactly the same. And so thinking about that, also grab rails. It's very often the outside features don't have as much restrictions for grab rails, but if there's, even if it's one step, if you have a bad hip or a bad knee, it's really challenging to maneuver without some kind of handrail or something. So just having a grab handle somewhere in those steps anytime there's a transition in surfaces, or anytime there's like a ramp maybe over a 112 pitch. And thinking about, the future too is whether you want to add an elevator later down the road if you wanted to. And as we get into the storage and thinking about closet space, one thing we find is some of these closet organizers, they can do some amazing things with a standard reach-in closet by going to the double height rod. But some of those, what's nice now is the top rod can actually be pulled down and accessed and hinged back up if you need it. So there's a lot of great storage options. There's the valet bars that come out. There's the hampers that you can open for your dirty laundry, and everything is really contained right there in your closet space. Thinking of that also is the doorways from each space. So, most front doors is 36 inches. But in some of the older homes, the smaller, as you go back, the bathroom or closet doors are as small as 24 inches. Very hard from an access if there's ever a walk or anything involved. So as you remodel, thinking about hallways, grab rails, and then doorways to all those areas, whether it's the bedroom and bathroom, whether it's a visitable situation where you're going to have a guest staying with you or your own space, thinking about access through all that, and the different floor heights. And also thinking about, when I get into the grab rails, stair rails by code are supposed to be continuous from the top step to the bottom step. And that is a newer code. It used to be they would go down half a flight and maybe switch sides, and there'd be a break in it, or it'd stop and start again. Unless you have a 3-foot landing, you're supposed to have that continuous handrail where you can put your hand on it and go all the way up or all the way down without taking your hand off of it. And one final note on that is that the ends of the handrails have to be turned back into the wall. As we get into the laundry area, you're thinking about access to the washer and dryer. It's a lot of different options. The front load are very accessible. Some people like to put them up on pedestals so they're easier to access. Some people don't like that. Some people are like stacking. The dryer on top of the washer gives them more of a counter space for a sink and folding. And those you can really tailor to your unique specifications and the way you want to lay that out. As you look at working with your designer, and if you are incorporating some of these universal design features into your remodel, it's possible that there's a tax credit for you. And so I would work with your accountant to seeing if there's a possibility of a tax deduction for a portion of the remodel that makes it universal design. And I know there's also some different incentives. Virginia has a livable homes tax credit if you're working on making a home more universal. And I know some municipalities like Arlington are also really heavily incentivizing people to make their homes more accessible, and you might have some added incentives there too. So thank you for spending some time with us today. I'm hoping you're walking away with some new ideas and also some things you might be able to incorporate with your future remodel, with your designer. I'd love to work with you. I hope we can work with you in the future. And I want to let you know that we are sticking around if you have for a Q&A session, if you want to be able to enter in your questions, so we can get those answered. And also that someone is on the phone if you want to call in and set an appointment to have us come out, walk the space with you, and talk to you about your project. We'd love to talk to you.